Marcus Halle stepped into the Grand Carlton Palace ballroom, just as the string quartet shifted into a delicate rendition of Clair de Lune. Crystal chandeliers glittered above the guests, each one shimmering like 1,000 tiny suns. Men in custom-tailored tuxedos and women dressed in haute couture gowns filled the room with polished laughter and refined arrogance. And yet, when Marcus walked in, everything dim. He wore a simple, dark suit impeccably pressed, subtly elegant but far humbler than the outfits around him. After driving 3 hours from the capital, he had hoped to blend quietly among the crowd, deliver his congratulations, and leave unnoticed. But the moment his foot touched the marble floor, he knew he had been wrong. A security guard stepped in front of him, blocking his path with a stiff arm. "Invitation, please," the guard demanded, though he hadn't asked a single other guest for proof of entry. Marcus handed him a gold-edged invitation. The guard held it as if it were a suspicious document, turning it over repeatedly, even lifting it up toward the chandelier light. After almost a full minute, he stepped aside reluctantly. "Fine. Go ahead," but inside, the reception was no more welcoming. Conversations dulled. Guests paused with their champagne glasses mid-air. A group of socialites exchanged looks of instant judgment, stepping away as if Marcus carried a contagious disease. An elderly woman squinted at him with disapproval. "Who is that man?" she whispered loudly enough for him to hear. "He certainly isn't Carter family." Marcus ignored the comments, keeping his posture steady. But when he moved toward an empty table, a middle-aged woman swooped in with almost theatrical urgency. "Sorry," she said with a brittle smile. "This table is reserved for the groom's side. There was no reserve sign, no name card. She simply didn't want him there." "That's all right," Marcus answered softly, moving on. The same thing happened again. And again and again. 3 rejections, each accompanied by judging eyes and stiffened shoulders. Finally, he found a lonely chair near the waiter's exit place. No one cared enough to defend. It didn't get better. A server passed him multiple times with trays of champagne, offering drinks to everyone but him. When Marcus finally gestured for one, the young man hesitated awkwardly. I need to check if we have any left." Then he vanished for 20 minutes. During the opening ceremony, Marcus sat quietly, observing how the cheerful atmosphere almost carefully curated itself to exclude him. Every guest exchanged pleasantries. Every group photo included everyone except him. It was as if he were a shadow, an unwelcome silhouette lingering at the edges of their celebration. Then the bride appeared. Evelyn Carter moved through the ballroom with glowing beauty. French lace trailed behind her like a cloud, her smile bright enough to warm the entire room, that is, until her eyes landed on Marcus. She froze, her face drained of color. Her conversation with the surrounding relatives died instantly. I'll be right back," she muttered to them, turning away abruptly, making sure to walk in the opposite direction from Marcus. He noticed everything. Her fear, her shock. The way she pretended not to have seen him at all. Marcus had spent years learning how to interpret human behavior. People revealed more when they thought no one was paying attention. And, here, surrounded by chandeliers and hand-picked guests, Evelyn Carter had betrayed everything with a single glance. He remained seated, outwardly calm, but in his eyes was a quiet, controlled intensity, an intensity only seen in someone who carried a truth powerful enough to reshape the entire room. He pulled out his phone and typed a message. "I'm here as expected." The reply came immediately. "Good. Keep documenting. Every detail counts." Marcus typed back, "They're exceeding expectations." As he pocketed his phone, he didn't notice Evelyn's mother staring at him from across the room. Patricia Carter, elegant woman with a posture carved out of pride and privilege, watched him with narrowed suspicion. Then she swept forward, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. "Young man," her voice cracked through the air, sharp as a blade, "this is a private family event. I don't believe you should be wandering around alone." Marcus inhaled slowly. "I stepped outside for fresh air." "Fresh air?" Patricia laughed, a harsh, insincere laugh. "Listen carefully. I don't know how you acquired an invitation, but I suggest you leave before my husband calls real security." We know every respected person in this town, and you certainly aren't one of them. He didn't flinch. I understand your concern. My concern? She snapped. My daughter's wedding is the most important day of her life, and I will not have it ruined by people like you. Then came the others. Helena Bradshaw, a woman with pearls worth more than most people's annual salaries, approached with her rehearsed smile. Everything all right, Patricia? She asked, even though she was already staring at Marcus as though he were an intruder. We're clarifying some misunderstandings about invitations and social etiquette, Patricia replied. Marcus knew what this was. A collective circle of superiority disguised as politeness. He had seen it before. He knew exactly how it worked. You see, Helena said, tilting her head condescendingly, sometimes people get a little too excited when they receive invitations to sophisticated events. But it's important to know your limits. Before Marcus could respond, Leonard Carter Jr., the groom, approached. Mom, what's going on? He asked. Just a small matter, sweetheart, Patricia answered sweetly. This young man seems confused about his place. Leonard looked at Marcus, confusion mixing with faint recognition. Do I know you? Marcus held eye contact. No, I doubt it. Are you sure? You look familiar? Leonard frowned. Patricia interrupted quickly. He doesn't know you, Leonard. Go greet your guests? Marcus had already seen what he needed. The flicker of recognition in Leonard's eyes, the tremor of fear in Patricia's voice, the subtle tension forming across the terrace. He turned to leave. Behind him, Patricia whispered, urgently, if Evelyn invited this man, I need to know why. Marcus continued walking. People always revealed their secrets when they thought he was no longer listening. Back inside the hall, Evelyn Carter looked like a bride unraveling. She kept glancing toward Marcus, panic twisting her features. Her bridesmaids whispered frantically in her ear. Every time someone pointed toward Marcus, Evelyn's reaction grew more frantic, more desperate. The photographer approached Marcus, camera in hand. Excuse me, sir, he said stiffly. Could you step aside? I need clear shots without visual interference. Visual interference? Marcus repeated slowly. Well, people who don't match the event's aesthetic. Marcus smiled, then a cold, quiet smile. He wasn't here as a victim. He was here for confirmation. He was here for evidence. He was here for the truth. He reached into his pocket and discreetly turned on a small digital recorder. Everything was being captured. With precision, with intention, with purpose. His phone buzzed. Status. Marcus typed, exactly what we predicted. Maybe worse. Jordan Miles replied, perfect. Keep going. Monday's case depends on this. Marcus' eyes narrowed. Monday would change everything. It was then that Patricia Carter returned, this time with reinforcements. Standing beside her was Charles Carter Sr., the family patriarch, a retired colonel, a businessman, a man whose presence carried the weight of old power, old money, and even older prejudices. Young man. The colonel barked. My wife informs me that your behavior is inappropriate for our family event. Marcus stood. Colonel Carter, he greeted calmly. It's an honor to meet you. Charles narrowed his eyes. Something about Marcus was unnerved him. Honor? The colonel repeated coldly. Honor is earned through sacrifice and service, not by placing yourself where you clearly don't belong. I understand your perspective perfectly. The colonel had expected fear, shame, maybe stammering. Instead, he received composure, steady confidence. Eyes that showed no trace of intimidation. Where do you know our Evelyn from? Patricia demanded. Marcus let silence hang a moment too long enough to make everyone shift uncomfortably. Our history, he finally said, is complicated. Some chapters are best left for the right moment. Across the room, Evelyn paled as if someone had punched the air from her lungs. Helena Bradshaw returned, this time with two more wealthy friends flanking her. Colonel, this man is disturbing the atmosphere. Perhaps we need more effective measures. What kind of measures? Marcus asked, activating his phone's recording mode. The kind people like you understand, Helena replied coldly. The police, background checks. Perhaps even an investigation into how you obtained your invitation. Marcus nodded slowly. Investigations are very useful. Sometimes they uncover surprising information. Something in his voice finally rattled them. That's enough, the colonel snapped. I'm calling Sheriff Reed. He owes me favors. He'll find a reason to remove you. Sheriff Reed? Marcus repeated calmly. Interesting choice. His tone made the colonel hesitate, ever so slightly, as if Marcus knew something he shouldn't. And then Evelyn Carter appeared, storming toward them. Mom! Dad! Stop this! She hissed. This is humiliating. She turned to Marcus, trying desperately to keep her voice steady. Marcus, thank you for coming. It was unexpected. Her acknowledgement dropped like a stone in still water. Guests froze. Patricia stiffened. Charles blinked. Helena demanded, So you two do know each other? Evelyn answered quickly, nervously. We went to law school together. A lie, a desperate, foolish lie. Marcus tilted his head. Your memory of our university years is certainly imaginative. The colonel frowned. If you studied together, why didn't we know about him? There's no confusion, Dad, Evelyn insisted. It's just miscommunication. Marcus checked his watch. He had been documenting for 3 hours and 17 minutes. Enough discrimination? Enough threats? Enough lies, enough evidence. His phone buzzed again, protagonist panicking. Good. Keep pushing. Marcus slipped his phone back into his pocket. Well, Evelyn, he said, since you mentioned our academic years, perhaps we should share some of those memories with your parents. Her face turned ghost white. Marcus, this isn't the time. Important days tend to expose important truths. Finally, the colonel had enough. This ends now. Sheriff Reed will be here in 20 minutes. He will remove you personally. Marcus checked his phone casually. I'm afraid Sheriff Reed might be unavailable tonight. Unavailable? Patricia repeated. Why would he be unavailable? Federal matters, Marcus said calmly. The guests stiffened before anyone could ask further. A man in uniform entered the hall. Sheriff Donovan Reed. The colonel pointed. Sheriff, remove this. But Reed stopped mid-stride. His face went white. Sir Assistant Attorney General Halle, he stuttered. I didn't expect to see you here. Patricia froze. The colonel choked. Evelyn nearly collapsed, and Marcus Halle finally stood up straight, letting the facade of anonymity fall. Sheriff Reed, Marcus said with quiet authority. You're early. Yes, sir, Reed answered. The federal operation is proceeding as instructed. Silence swallowed the entire ballroom. Marcus reached into his coat. My name is Marcus Halle, he announced evenly. Assistant Attorney General, United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. And the room erupted into shock. Maria stood frozen in the doorway, the chipped wooden frame pressing against her shoulder as she watched Adrian Cole, billionaire CEO of Coltech Industries, move confidently around her tiny kitchen like he belonged there. He didn't notice her at first. He was too focused on flipping the eggs in her old pan, the one that always tilted slightly to the left. Steam curled around him, sunlight hitting the side of his face, making him look wildly out of place in a room that was never meant for men in custom-tailored suits. Her heart hammered. She still couldn't understand it. One night of helping him after that charity event. One night of letting him hide out in her car from angry investors. One night of offering him coffee and telling him the truth no one else dared to say, and now he was here, in her home, making her breakfast like some kind of impossible dream. He finally glanced up and saw her. His breath caught, the same way hers did. You weren't supposed to see me yet, he said softly. Maria swallowed. I didn't even know you were still here. Adrian smiled, slow, warm, and nothing like the man newspapers called ruthless. I wasn't ready to leave. Her fingers tightened on the doorframe. Adrian, people like you don't stay in places like this. He turned off the stove, wiped his hands on a towel, and stepped closer, just enough to make her pulse jump. Maria, he said, voice steady. People like me end up in boardrooms and corner offices because no one challenges us. But yesterday, You were the first person in years who spoke to me like a human being, not a headline. She looked away, embarrassed. I just told you the truth. And that, he whispered, is exactly why I'm here. Silence stretched, heavy, warm, electric. Then he added, Your son woke up earlier. We talked. He told me you haven't had a real breakfast in weeks. Maria stiffened. He shouldn't have said that. He cares about you, Adrian said gently. And so do I, maybe more than I should. Maria's breath hitched. This was wrong. This was impossible. This was dangerous. Adrian, what do you want from us? She whispered. He looked at her with an honesty she wasn't prepared for. Just one morning, he said. One morning where you let someone take care of you. Her heart ached in a way she hadn't felt in years, and for the first time, she didn't step back. Maria didn't realize she was holding her breath until Adrian took another slow step toward her. His presence filled the narrow kitchen, making the room feel smaller, warmer, more dangerous than it had ever been. Sit, he said softly, nodding toward the small wooden chair by the table. Please. His voice wasn't commanding like it was on TV interviews. It was careful, almost fragile. Maria hesitated. She had spent years doing everything alone, working double shifts, raising her son, fixing what she could, surviving what she couldn't. No one ever offered to help her. No one ever stayed, and here was this man, this CEO, looking at her like she mattered. She finally exhaled and sat down. Adrian placed the plate in front of her, the eggs steaming, toast buttered perfectly. She blinked at the food as if it were some kind of spell she wasn't ready to break. You didn't have to do all this, she whispered. I know, he answered. But I wanted to. He pulled out the chair opposite her and sat, elbows resting lightly on the table. His eyes stayed on her, studying her carefully as if he was afraid she might disappear. Maria! You looked exhausted last night, he said quietly. You were shaking when you handed me that coffee. I couldn't stop thinking about it. She pressed her lips together, trying to hide how much his words stung. I was fine. I always am. Exactly, he replied. You've been fine for too long. Her throat tightened. He wasn't supposed to see that. Not her struggle. Not her tiredness. Not the loneliness beneath all her strength. She looked down to avoid his eyes. But he leaned forward. You deserve more than survival, he said. You deserve someone in your corner. Even if it's just for a morning. Maria lifted her head slowly. Why me, Adrian? Out of everyone you know? Why walk into my kitchen? He paused, and for the first time, he looked uncertain, because when you talked to me last night you didn't see a CEO, he said. You saw a man. And I don't remember the last time anyone did. Her chest tightened painfully. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't pretending. He was telling the truth. Before she could speak, small footsteps pattered down the hallway. Her son, Jordan, peeked around the corner, hair messy, sleep still in his eyes. Mom! Is he still here? Jordan asked. Adrian turned, smiling warmly. I promised you I'd stay for breakfast. If that's still okay. Jordan nodded shyly. Maria's heart almost gave out. This wasn't just breakfast. This was a line she wasn't sure she should cross, but when she looked at her son, really looked, she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. And when she looked back at Adrian, she saw something else. Possibility. Maria swallowed hard. Okay, she murmured. Breakfast it is. As Adrian smiled, relieved, warm, a little nervous, Maria felt something dangerous shifting inside her, and she couldn't stop it. Maria tried to steady her breathing as Adrian motioned Jordan to sit beside him. Her son slid into the chair, eyes shining with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. He kept sneaking glances at Adrian like he was some superhero who'd stepped straight out of a screen and into their living room. Adrian laughed softly. It's okay, Jordan. You can ask me anything. Jordan hesitated. Are you really a CEO? Like, the big boss of everything? Adrian nodded. Something like that. And you're making us breakfast? That part I'm still figuring out, he admitted with a grin. Maria felt her lips curve despite herself. He was trying. Really trying. For her. For her son. The thought made something warm unfold in her chest. But the warmth scared her too. She stood, moving to the counter to hide her trembling hands. She needed distance, clarity, anything to calm the storm building inside her. Adrian's voice followed her gently. "Maria, you don't have to run from me." "I'm not running," she said quietly, staring at the sink. "Then look at me." She froze. Slowly, too slowly, she turned. Adrian wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes were steady, serious. "I don't want to complicate your life," he said. "I know you already carry more than most people ever see. I know you're careful. But I'm here because something about you made me stop. And I haven't stopped thinking since." Her breath hitched. "Adrian," he stood, closing part of the distance between them. He didn't touch her. He didn't crowd her. He just stood close enough for her to feel the honesty in his voice. "You don't have to let me in," he said softly. "But I want you to know I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Maria's heart thudded painfully, loudly, impossibly. For the first time in years? She wasn't sure she wanted someone to leave. Maria's fingers tightened around the edge of the counter as she searched his face. No one had ever said words like that to her, certainly not a man like him. And the way Jordan watched them, hopeful and quiet, made the air feel heavier. "Adrian, this is my real life," she whispered. "It's messy. It's loud. It's not what you're used to." He shook his head gently. "Maybe that's exactly why I'm here." Her breath faltered. For a long second, none of them moved. Then Adrian added, barely above a whisper, "Let me stay. Just a little longer." And Maria didn't say no. Maria felt the room shift the moment Adrian stepped back into the kitchen. There was something different in his expression now, something settled, as if he had made a decision she wasn't aware of yet. He moved with a quiet confidence, not the kind he wore in boardrooms, but a softer, more human version that unsettled her in ways she wasn't prepared for. He looked around her kitchen, her world, her life, as if none of it made him uncomfortable. In fact, he seemed almost relieved to be here. Maria didn't understand that. Men like him didn't slow down. They didn't step into small apartments in neighborhoods like hers. They didn't make breakfast at someone else's stove, and then wander down a hallway with the ease of a person who had always belonged. But Adrian had done all of that without hesitation. She felt her heart thud as he stopped in front of her. Not close enough to make a promise, but close enough to make her feel one forming. He noticed the worry in her eyes, the questions she didn't voice and he didn't push. Instead, he simply stood with her in the quiet, letting the moment settle between them. It struck her how rare that was someone willing to just be present without demanding anything in return. Jordan's laughter drifted faintly through the apartment, and Maria glanced toward the hallway. For a moment, she saw her son happy in a way she hadn't seen in months, safe, light, hopeful. It scared her more than anything. Adrian followed her gaze, understanding more than she said. He didn't need her to explain the risk, the fear, the years of doing everything alone. He simply stepped back a little, giving her space while still making it clear he wasn't walking away. Maria realized then that she had expected him to leave the moment breakfast ended, that all of this was temporary, accidental, impossible. But he hadn't even looked at the door. He had looked at her, and the way he looked at her made her chest ache. She turned toward the sink, pretending to busy her hands, but the truth was impossible to ignore. For the first time in a very long time, someone had stepped into her life without asking her to carry the weight alone, someone who didn't shrink from her struggles or judge her reality. Someone who stayed. Maria inhaled slowly, letting the warmth of the morning settle into her bones. She didn't have answers. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But as she heard Adrian and Jordan's voices mixing together laughter and surprise, light and effortless, she felt something inside her loosen. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something she hadn't allowed herself to feel possibility. And as Adrian returned to her side once more, gentle and patient, Maria didn't push it away. Not this time. Maria wasn't used to mornings like this. Mornings filled with warmth instead of exhaustion, laughter instead of silence. She stood by the counter for a long moment, letting herself absorb it, letting the unusual comfort seep into places she had kept locked for years. Adrian had settled into her space so naturally that it frightened her, but it also stirred something tender she hadn't dared feel in a long time. When he stepped beside her again, he didn't crowd her or reach for her. He simply existed quietly next to her, matching her breath without even realizing it. She stole a glance at him, catching the way he scanned her home, not with judgment, but curiosity and respect. As if her life, her small world, was something worth learning. Jordan burst back into the kitchen, carrying the noisy monster truck in both hands, excitement radiating off him. He went straight to Maria, tugging her arm and talking so fast she could only catch half the story. But she didn't need the details. She could see the happiness written all over his face. It had been a while since she'd seen him this animated. A long while. Adrian watched the two of them with a softness that didn't fit the ruthless reputation the world knew him for. The man who commanded boardrooms, moved markets, and held thousands of people under his leadership looked completely undone by the sight of a mother and her son standing in a small kitchen. There was no ego, no performance, no power play, just a man whose heart was finally quiet. Maria guided Jordan to finish his breakfast, but her thoughts drifted. She had survived on routine work, bills, parenting, fatigue repeating like a loop with no end in sight. She wasn't prepared for interruptions. She wasn't prepared for hope. But here it was, sitting in her kitchen with tousled hair and the faint smell of coffee. As she collected the plates, Jordan ran off again, giving them a rare moment alone. Adrian met her eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. Not a promise, not a declaration, something gentler, more real. An understanding that what happened this morning mattered. That it wasn't accidental or fleeting for either of them. Maria lowered her gaze, steadying herself. She didn't know what the future held. She still had responsibilities, fears, memories that shaped her. But she also had the courage to recognize what her heart whispered quietly. She wasn't alone anymore, not because someone saved her, but because someone finally saw her. As Adrian stepped closer and offered to help clean the dishes, Maria allowed herself a rare, genuine smile. Small, cautious, but true. For the first time in years, she let someone stand beside her. And just like that, the day began not with loneliness, but with the gentle beginning of something new. Something that, for the first time, felt like it had a chance to grow. The end.